Welcome everyone to the Thursday edition of Fair Territory. I am Ken Rosenthal here with Alanna Rizzo. Alanna, we've got a lot to get to today. We've got a powerhouse race in the AL East. We've got a big injury in the NL East. And we've got this mass of mediocrity in the game that is affecting the wild card races, affecting the deadline. So let's get to it.
Yeah, Kenny, some people call it parody. Some people call it mediocrity. I think I'm with you on the mediocrity side. And welcome everybody to Fair Territory. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Follow us, of course, and make sure you get your questions in for Grillin Ken. We want you to participate in our chat. Let's get to the lead, Ken. And you're talking about that beast in the AL East. And of course, we talk so much about the New York Yankees, deservedly so. But by the way, there's a team that you used to cover intimately, the Baltimore Orioles, that say, hey, don't forget about us. We're not that far behind in that division race.
2.5 games, Alanna. And really, these two teams, to me, are somewhat even. The Yankees have won 30 of 39 since May 1st. They've been incredibly hot. The Orioles, 6 straight, 16 of their last 20. And while I said they're 2.5 games back, their cushion in the wild card race is 9.5 games. So they're looking good right now. And the two things that stand out for both teams are just how balanced they are. So let's look at where these teams rank in runs per game and ERA, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Runs per game, the Baltimore Orioles are leading the majors in runs per game, 5.13. The Phillies are next, 5.10. Yankees right behind them, followed by the Dodgers and the surprise team of all, the Guardians, a team that was horrible offensively last year, really good this year. Now, ERA, same cast of characters. Yankees lead the majors in ERA without Gerrit Cole throwing a single pitch this season, 2.89. Phillies at 2.99. Orioles at 3.08, followed by the Dodgers and Red Sox. So it's kind of amazing what has happened here. When you look at the runs per game, the Orioles, okay? We've talked about Jackson Holliday a lot, right? He's not even there yet. They have so many players. It's not just Henderson and Rushman. It's Ryan Mountcastle. It's Colton Cowser. It's everybody who is on that roster on a given night. Ryan Westberg. Jorge Mateo had a big game this week. Jordan Westberg, by the way. So this is a team that has a lot of balance offensively. They haven't gotten much out of Mullins this year, but it's been really impressive. And then the Yankees, as we discussed a lot, no Gerrit Cole. But Luis Gil, my goodness, he is 5th in the majors in ERA. And even Cody Petit, a fill-in starter, is 3-0 with a 2.14 ERA.
Yeah, we had Matt Blake on Foul Territory the other day. I asked him that question, Ken. I said, when Gerrit Cole comes back, how can you have that conversation with Luis Gil? He said, that's a little bit above my pay grade. We certainly have to have those discussions, but it's a good problem for the Yankees to have. And everyone's making it out to be, the Dodgers and the Yankees, Ken, in the World Series. But what about the Phillies and the Orioles? I mean, is that something that could easily happen?
Funny you should say that, Alanna, because they play this weekend, and it's going to be a great series and actually kind of the sequel to what we saw last week. That was Dodgers-Yankees, supposed World Series preview. This very well could be a World Series preview. Problem for the Phillies right now is they're going to be without their all-star catcher, JT Realmuto, for about at least a month because he's coming off right knee meniscus surgery. And it's interesting. This team has not had Trey Turner since April 29th. They've increased their division lead from 1.5 to 10 games, Alanna. They are amazing with what they do.
And it's insane to think that Trey Turner not in the lineup. Sosa's really filled in nicely. He's not Trey Turner, Ken, but he's done a nice job at the shortstop position. They can move him around the infield. JT Realmuto, though, is a very tough hole to fill. I mean, there's a reason that Dave Dombrowski and the Philadelphia Phillies decided to have the surgery right now. Is it because of the lead that they hold in the NL East? You never want to be without him, but better now than, September, October. Looks like we lost Ken. Oh, there we go. Go ahead, Ken. I got you back.
Oh, sorry about that. One concern was that the injury might get worse. And these things, if they get worse, then it's more than a month, and then you're looking at a different part of the season, later in the season. So certainly it's the right time. And yes, they don't have the kind of replacements that Edmundo Sosa has provided for Trey Turner. It's Garrett Stubbs, it's Rafael Marchand. But at the same time, This team has the biggest lead of any club in the major leagues, biggest division lead. They've got a 10-game lead over the Braves. Think about that for a minute. And JT Realmuto, even if he misses more than a month, he comes back around August 1st. That's fine. They'll be fine. And he's a huge part of what they do. There's no question. But at the same time, this is a team that obviously has it going really well right now.
Phillies will definitely be buyers if they need any piece to complement what they already have, which is already an unbelievable rotation and an unbelievable roster up and down, Ken. But there are a lot of teams right now. It's very muddied. It's very cloudy. There's a lot of teams that could be on either side of the fence at the trade deadline. How do you sift through it? Can you hear me, Ken? Looks like Ken's a little frozen there. We're having some technical difficulties. Basically, the deadline beckons a ton of teams in limbo. If you look at the teams in the NL Central, you look at the teams in really the National League in general, with the exception of the Nationals or the Marlins and the Colorado Rockies, everybody is kind of just a handful of games away from being in that wild card hunt. You take a look at the Chicago Cubs, the Cincinnati Reds, St. Louis. Everybody in the NL Central is just a half game out as far as the wild card is concerned. By the way, Pittsburgh Pirates, rounding out the NL Central, says the same thing. Don't forget about us. They're only one game back. If they could get some bats to complement what Jared Jones and Paul Skeens are doing in that starting rotation, the Pittsburgh Pirates might have a shot to get into the postseason. That's a great sports town. Why not do that? Washington Nationals have been in a rebuilding mode for quite some time now. Obviously, Mike Rizzo would like to get this team back to the postseason since Trey Turner, Soto's not there anymore. Bryce Harper's not there anymore. Max Scherzer's not there anymore. Steven Strasburg has retired, but they are right there in the thick of things as well. Such a jammed wild card picture masks the clear trade deadline picture in the National League as well as the American League. I think right now the only true fun race to watch, if you will, is the AL East. You heard Ken talk about it earlier. Just 2.5 games out for the Baltimore Orioles. Boston is still there, believe it or not. This is a team that did absolutely nothing in the offseason, with the exception of signing Lucas Giolito, who is out for the year with surgery, but they're 2 games out of the wild card in the American League. Toronto, I don't know how, 2 games under 500 is still in the hunt. Of course, they just traded Kevin Biggio, or DFA'd Kevin Biggio, Ken. But what do you make of this? You have so many teams that are right there. I would imagine as a front office, you're thinking either hurry up and make a push and get in this thing, or hurry up and fall back, because I don't know which way to go.
Alanna, you're absolutely right. And one of the problems we have in the game right now, it's not a problem, it's just kind of a thing, is that we start talking about the deadline around March 15th. So much has to transpire. We are still just about 7 weeks away from the deadline. There is a ton of baseball to be played between now and then. And for a lot of those teams you just mentioned, as you went through the standings there, they don't know where they're going. Now, we can provide context to where they are right now. If this team doesn't do this, they could do this. Okay. But to really discuss the deadline in depth right now and to think we know what, for instance, the Atlanta Braves are going to do. We don't know what they're going to do. You could say, well, they need an outfielder to replace Acuna, but at the same time, they might need another starting pitcher if they lose one of their starters. And that's just one example. So I'm not saying don't talk about the deadline. I'm the last guy to say that, right? But at the same time, this is all premature. We do not really have a good feel for virtually every team. Look at the Yankees, okay? We can look at them right now and say, okay, they need more strikeout, swing and miss in their bullpen. They perhaps will have a problem at first base if Rizzo doesn't pick it up. But 4 weeks from now, their problems could be entirely different. They could lose 2 starters. Another position player could get hurt. All of these things could transpire. And when you have what I called the massive mediocrity early in the show, then you have all of these decisions on hold. And keep in mind, too, fans should understand this. The draft takes place around the All-Star game. Front offices are going to be knee-deep in that starting in about a week, if they're not knee-deep in it already. And that affects the talks going on with the trades as well.
And Ken, you're not the only one that thinks talking about the trade deadline on April 1st is premature. We give our friends at the Northside Territory some love, obviously friends of the Foul Territory platform. Patrick Mooney and Sahadev Sharma mentioned Craig Counsell, Kenny, saying it's too early for trade deadline talk. So, of course, subscribe to Northside Territory whenever you can get your podcast. The managers aren't worried about it. They're worried about winning that day, right? They're not worried about who's going to be on their 26-man roster come August 1st. They're not worried about that on June 13th.
No, they're not. And they might have some thoughts, and I'm sure Council has some thoughts. But even Mets owner Steve Cohen in London over the weekend said, what are we talking about the deadline for? We don't know where we are yet. And the Mets are a good example here. They've got a soft part of their schedule coming up right now. It's in progress. It started with this Marlins series. 3.5 out in the wild card race. They haven't played well. They're not a
Yeah.
good team right now. Could they start to take off? Sure, they could. Any of these teams in this NL wildcard race could do that. Any of the teams in the AL wildcard race could do it as well. The Astros, 8.5 back in the division, but not buried in the wildcard race. So this is all going to play out. And talk to me on July 20th. Now, we'll have some deals before then, I'm sure, but talk to me then, and then we'll have a better feel for exactly what teams' needs are and where they are. And it could change right up until the 31st.
Yeah, an absolute logjam there in the wild card round. All right, let's get a word from our friends at SeatGeek. And before we get into this, Ken, I want to ask you a little bit. I mean, I'm really looking forward to the Phillies and the Orioles playing this weekend. If you're a fan and you're looking on SeatGeek and you're looking for a game to go to, is that the game you're going to? Is that the matchup you're interested in?
It is, and I won't be there. I'll be at Yankees Red Sox, but I kind of wish I would be there
Boo!
because that is going to be a heck of a series. And I believe the Sunday matchup is Wheeler and Corbin Burns. Corbin Burns has been brilliant for the Orioles this season. And yes, Scooble is probably the Cy Young leader right now. Luis Hill is in that conversation as well, but I am willing to bet that at the end, Corbin Burns is going to be right there. He's been huge for them, everything you would want in a trade like this, just as Zach Wheeler is everything you want in a guy that you initially signed as a free agent and then extended. He has been brilliant.
Yeah, Wheeler and Nola and Ranger Suarez. I tell you, the Phillies are a lot of fun. All right, SeatGeek is the official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, so they have you covered for all of your baseball ticket needs with over 28 million downloads. They're the #1 rated ticketing app, Ken. Baseball season, of course, is in full swing, and you don't want to miss out. SeatGeek has your tickets to every game and, of course, concerts, festivals, and more. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. Use our code FAIR for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code FAIR. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. All right, Ken, time now for Grillin Ken. We want to hear from you. You don't often get an opportunity to ask Ken Rosenthal any questions. So take advantage of the time today here on Fair Territory to ask the #1 baseball insider what you're thinking about. And a lot of it, Ken, of course, has been about the trade deadline that we were just talking about. Everybody that's in, with their teams like, hey, what is our team going to do? And as we've discussed that, of course, it changes by the minute. So you said July 20th. Why is that your date of, okay, now we're getting serious?
I don't know. I just picked it out of thin air, Alana. I'm just saying basically after the All-Star game, as we get closer, we'll have more definition. That's all I'm saying here. And I'm not saying we can't talk about the deadline. Of course we can. But we don't have a full understanding of what each team's needs are going to be. And also, there are teams that pivot late. I remember one year, I can't remember the season, but Dave Dombrowski sold at the very last minute. This was when he was with Detroit. And it shook up things. This can happen. The Mets last year. At this point last year, we would not have thought the Mets were going to trade Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. That is really my point. That so many things are going to happen in the next month that are going to alter the club's thinking that it's difficult to predict and really write about this with authority. Now, again, in my latest notes column, I talked about the Jays, the Brewers, the Rays, and the Nationals. Just where they are now and how things might develop one way or the other, what they should be looking at. That's one thing. But to say, well, the Mets have to do this, we don't know that yet. They may have to do something else entirely by the time we get there.
Ken, I love this question coming in Grillin Ken. It's one of our super chat questions, so we appreciate that participating here on Fair Territory. And it's from Daniel Rothenberg, and he wants to know this from you, Kenny. What are the most memorable in-season deals you remember since you started covering baseball? For him, it's Teixeira to the Braves.
That was a big one. There's no question about it. It set up the Rangers pretty nicely for the future. If you remember, Elvis Andrus was in that trade, Neftali Feliz. They got a boatload back. Jared Saltalamacchia at that time, the top catching prospect in the game. It was really a fascinating deal. Now, the ones that stand out to me are the ones that I guess were the most shocking. And certainly Scherzer and Verlander qualified last year. Zach Greinke, the year he
Mm-hmm.
went to the Astros. Troy Tulowitzki, the year he went to the Blue Jays. A lot of times, Alanna, and you know this, we talk about names because these guys are going to go. We know that they're going to go. Those are the kinds of deals that I just mentioned that kind of come out of thin air, and they are the shockers. Those are the ones that we kind of live for at the deadline. I remember one year too when the Red Sox turned late and they traded Lester and Lackey. These things are what makes this thing so exciting. And I'm sure this deadline, even though it looks like right now there aren't going to be many sellers, I will guarantee you it will be fun.
I
Guaranteed.
Yeah, it always is. I remember I was covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I remember we were flying. I can't remember where we were flying to or where we were flying from, but we were flying in midair, and everybody's like trying to. And keep in mind, obviously, Andrew Friedman is on the plane, right? So we're just trying to figure out where the heck Yu Darvish is going, or where Justin Verlander is going. And I remember some a player was walking past me and he was like, "We just got Darvish," and I was like, "We just got you." I mean, that type of stuff is so much fun when those things happen. I'll also remember when I was with the Colorado Rockies covering that team, Ubaldo Jimenez was supposed to
Oh
start that
boy.
day. He's actually on the mound
Yes.
starting, and I look, and Manny Corpus is already warming up in the bullpen. And I'm like, why is Corpus warming up? It's not, the game hasn't even started yet. Well, lo and behold, Ubaldo Jimenez was traded before that game really even got going. So those are a couple that I certainly remember. Continue to load up the questions here for Grillin Ken. We have another question for you regarding Alex Cora, Ken. They want to know what three teams could Alex Cora might be managing next season. Apparently, he's not going to be with Boston, according to Bill. So, where do you see Alex Cora landing if it's not at Fenway?
First of all, I'm putting Boston on this list. I'm not ruling out that the Red Sox are not going to employ Alex Cora next year. We can look at a number of teams that could have openings if things don't go the way they want them to. And I'm talking about big teams. The Dodgers are one, the Yankees are another, the Cardinals are a third. And there are more as well. And it's going to be really interesting to see what Alex Cora decides. He's talked a lot about wanting to be with his family and his kids. Could he take a year off? Yeah, I think he could take a year off, or even maybe even move to a front office role. But he's going to be this year's Craig Counsell. It certainly seems that way. And you might say, well, the Red Sox, they're not playing all that great. They're not. But the fact that they're around 500 with as many injuries as they've had, it's kind of astonishing, to be perfectly honest. It's a tribute to their pitching, which they've overhauled. But Core will be out there. He's going to be an interesting name. And if one of those big teams, the Dodgers or Yankees, somehow flames out in the playoffs, could I see changes taking place? Yes, I could.
Wow, that surprises me. You think that they would say goodbye to Dave Roberts, who's taken his team to the postseason every single year since he's been there, but
Alana, and
because
he's
they
got the best record of any active manager.
yeah, no, I get it. I'm just wondering though,
Yeah,
because the Dodgers can't get over that dang hump of going past the first round in the postseason the last couple of years, or going to the World Series. I could see perhaps where that would be. He would be the scapegoat, and the same thing with Aaron Boone. But Boone's tied to Cashman, is he not?
he is. And again, both these guys have been really successful. So it would take kind of a flame out of large proportions for this kind of thing to really gain a life of its own. But if you want to play devil's advocate, and I'm sure some Dodgers fans do with regard to Dave Roberts, hey, they haven't gotten over the hump. And maybe it's time for a change if they don't do it again. Even though, my gosh, he's got like a 620 winning percentage as a regular season manager. And they've had some unfortunate things happen in the playoffs, no question. But can you put that on him? I'm not really sure you can. And the same can be said of Boone if indeed the Yankees don't go as far as they'd like. So I'm just throwing it out there. All I'm saying really is that we all know this. Things happen. And seasons end in disappointment, and occasionally they end in quite shocking turns of events. David Ross last year, losing his
Mm-hmm.
job for Craig Counsell. So, again, I'm not predicting anything along these lines, and I don't necessarily think either of those moves would be justified no matter what happens. But we know how the game works, and sometimes the
Yeah.
game works in unfortunate ways.
Yeah, I did not see the David Ross thing coming. I don't think David Ross saw that coming either, Ken. We have one more here in Grillin Ken. This is from Referee 583 in the Super Chat. We always appreciate you being here, Referee. Ken, what's your thoughts on Mason Miller and where? I mean, I don't know that the Oakland Athletics let him go, Ken. I mean, they have nothing to hold on to, but he is a star, and some teams would love to have him.
This is an interesting question because relievers are the most volatile performers on the field. That their consistency level varies from year to year, except in rare cases like, for instance, Mariano Rivera. Mason Miller is really good, and he is a guy that is going to be in demand. The A's were getting calls on him as recently or as far back as a month ago last year with an injury. He's a guy that is absolutely dominant, absolutely will be coveted in the trade market. And if the A's can turn him into three really good prospects, for example, they have to consider it. Is he going to be part of their first great team in Las Vegas? Probably not. So you don't want to see them do this because they actually have played fairly well for who they are, for what they have, for the money that they've spent. But at the same time, I can see if they get the right offer, this happening. I can definitely see it happening, and it probably, for the franchise's sake, should happen. They're spinning their wheels. They don't have to worry about ticking off the fan base because the fan
They've
base is
already done
already
that.
ticked off. They're going to Sacramento next year. I can see it.
And they want to play 10% of their home games away from home. It's just a comedy of errors when it comes to the Oakland Athletics. I feel bad for that
And one other thing,
fan base.
Alanna,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, the person asked where. Where will he go? Every team would want
everywhere.
Mason Miller. Even if you've got a closer, it doesn't matter. Every team will be in on him. The Orioles would be a great fit,
I was about to
obviously.
say that, Ken. I was about to
We
say
can
that.
name
Wouldn't you love to see Mason Miller in Baltimore as that final piece in the back end of that rotation? I respect Craig Kimbrell. He's not the answer. You don't replace Bautista easily, but man, I'd love to see Mason Miller in Baltimore.
he'd be great there. And Craig Kimbrell has been much better of late. Let's give him credit where credit is due. But at the same time, you get a Mason Miller to anchor a bullpen that right now has Kimbrell and others who have done well. And you've got a rotation, a top three right now of Burns, Grayson Rodriguez, and Kyle Bradish. That's pretty good. And that would be something to really, if you're a Baltimore fan, get excited about.
Yeah, they have a lot to be excited about there, including a new ownership group. Time now for Dude and Dork of the Week. This is where we each give a deserving dude and a deserving dork. I just like to say dude. All right, Ken. Dude is up first. Who is yours?
Well, I go back to last weekend and I go back to the Dodger fans marching on Yankee Stadium. There were thousands of them with a police escort. And this is a fan club called Pantone 524. Is that right, Alanna?
294.
294. Okay, got the numbers wrong. But that's one of the great traveling fan clubs in all of sports. And you see right here, this is right outside the stadium. On Fox the other night, I called this a glorious act of civil disobedience. And that is what it was. These were conscientious dissenters, and they were having the times of their lives going into Yankee Stadium, making a lot of noise. It was a great scene, and a great scene in part because of Pantone 294.
Yeah, Pantone 294 is the exact color of Dodger blue on the color scale. And it's a great fan base. They're very respectful. They're very courteous. And they do. I remember in 2016, the last time the Dodgers went to Yankee Stadium, that was the first time Pantone 294 took over the Bronx. And the Yankees fans were stunned. And in this past weekend, as you know, being there, Ken, they did their own version of the roll call with the bleacher creatures. So I'm sure
Yes.
the Bronx Bombers and those fans were pissed off about that. All right. My dude of the week, right up my alley, is Kevin Ginkel, who is sponsoring 37 adoptions for any cat or dog that is 6 months or older at a main shelter in Arizona. I think this is such a tremendous thing. I'm very big on adoption and rescue and not buying from breeders just because of the overpopulation. perfectly healthy dogs are getting euthanized. I appreciate Kevin Ginkel for doing this for the Diamondbacks Give Back. So good on you, Kevin Ginkel. You are my dude of the week. Please adopt, don't shop. Okay, Ken, dork options. Who do you have?
I've got Noelvi Marte. He's still serving his suspension for a positive substance that he tested for. And he came finally and talked to the media because he's almost eligible to play. He's going to be eligible June 27th. He's on a rehab assignment now. And he said, in reality, the substance, boldenone, just appeared in my system. I really don't know how it came about, unfortunately. You can see the quote there from Charlie Goldsmith. And, okay, I understand he's in a horrible spot. He doesn't have a lot he can say, but that argument, except in one particular case, there's a substance that I've written about, I'm not going to get into it here, where there are a number of players who have tested positive for it over the years, and they, to a man, have fought this and said this is a weird thing, and it certainly looks like a weird thing. Another story for another day. But for positive tests for substances like this, steroids, no. It doesn't suddenly appear in your system. It appears in your system for a reason. And if you accidentally ingested something, I get it, but we've heard this too many times.
Here's a couple of things to that. And AJ Pierzynski on Foul Territory the other day was talking about this. Why the man waits 2 months to say anything about it is beyond him. Because if you don't know that somehow something appeared in your system and you find out that there's a violation of whatever it was that went into your system, I would be screaming from the mountaintops that I did not know that it was, I didn't do this. Let's look at this further. And I would be doing it immediately after this was found out that there was something that was not NSF approved in my system. That's number one. I'm not waiting 2 months until I'm almost ready to play again to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. Number two, as a professional athlete, Ken, as you know better than anybody in the amount of clubhouses that you've been in, it is posted all over the place about what you can and cannot do. Make sure everything is NSF certified. Todd Frazier was saying he was even paranoid to go to like Jamba Juice and get a smoothie because you don't know what's in those things, or people, use the same containers. There can be cross contamination. I don't buy that with all of the rules and how upfront Major League Baseball has been about this. You have to know what's being put in your body. So that's number two on that. I'd be screaming from the rooftops, and I'd be damn sure I knew what was going into my body. All right, my dork of the week is an organization. It is the Miami Marlins, who basically waved the white flag, Ken, back in early May when they traded away Luis Arraez, their best player, to the San Diego Padres, basically conceding their season. And now it seems like they just mentally have forgotten to play baseball or the fundamentals. And Gary Cohen of the SNY broadcast basically went off on the Marlins. They basically tried to turn a double play and they forgot how many outs there were. It's just unbelievable to me, the mental mistakes that this team is having. You can't do this. I mean, I understand you are one of only two teams that has no shot of going to the postseason, but you can't, this type of stuff can't happen. Am I right in saying that?
You're right in saying that. And I would say, though, it's not just the Marlins doing stupid things on a nightly basis. We see that throughout the game. A lot of it is because guys are rushed to the big leagues. They don't have the foundation in the minors that they once did. But with regard to the Marlins and that particular play, Gary Cohen's point was somebody could have gotten hurt because he threw over for the third out, and it was the third out, and play was sort of dead at that point. So I get it, and it's a fair criticism for sure. I would just say it's not just the Marlins.
No, it's not. It's easier to pick on them, though, when, again, they trade their best player in the beginning of May when they go to the postseason last year. Talk about not trying. My goodness. We always appreciate all of our sponsorships here on Fair Territory. BetMGM is a big one. We're so happy that they're with us, of course. Once a day, play our free-to-play BetMGM Swing for the Fences for a chance to win daily prizes. Play as the batter and pick an area of the strike zone. Get a single, double, triple, home run, or fly out. Free-to-play promotion for BetMGM Sportsbook. BetMGM Sportsbook account holders who play our BetMGM Swing for the Fences will have the opportunity to win a reward if they get a hit. Reward types include parlay boost tokens, odds boost tokens, SGP boost tokens, bonus spins in eligible casino states, and bonus bets. All rewards expire in 24 hours. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's going to do it for Ken Rosenthal and myself here on Fair Territory. Ken, of course, you are back on Monday. at 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific. Foul Territory is next. Hannah Kaiser will lead the charge there. Scott Braun is still on vacation on a yacht someplace in Greece. Whatever, I'm not jealous. And then after Foul Territory, Ken, it's myself, Clint Pasillas, on Dodgers Territory at 3 p.m. Eastern. Have a great Thursday, everybody. Bye-bye.